Greetings, everyone. This is Anime Octopus, and I'd like to extend a warm welcome to my YouTube channel. Today's fanfic discussion will delve into an intriguing scenario: what if Naruko's eyes were sealed? Part 3. Disclaimer: the content on this channel is purely for entertainment and discussion purposes. I do not own any of the anime footage featured in my videos. All rights and credits go to their respective creators and copyright holders. Now, without further ado, let's dive right in. Naru's perspective. Today was a significant moment. I was finally granted permission to step beyond the village walls. No longer was I confined to the limits of Konoha. Don't misunderstand me, I cherish Konoha deeply and always will. Yet, it has been my lifelong aspiration to leave, not as a mere traveler, but as a fully fledged ninja. However, I still had to wait. Standing just outside the Hokage Tower, I found myself growing increasingly impatient as I waited for Sasuke-kun to arrive. Why is he taking so long? I silently wondered, shuffling my feet through what I assumed to be a small pile of stones. We were supposed to be heading towards the village gates, preparing to depart. But no, Sasuke-kun had insisted on speaking with the Hokage and Tsunade-sama before we could leave. I let out yet another sigh, losing count of how many times I had done so, until the sound of approaching footsteps interrupted my thoughts. Naru. Sasuke-kun's voice called out as he placed a hand gently on my shoulder. I frowned in frustration. "What kept you so long?" I asked with a hint of annoyance. I could hear him sigh, and I imagined him shaking his head in disapproval at my impatience. "Naru. A young lady shouldn't speak like that," he chided gently. I crossed my arms in mild irritation. "Well, it's your fault for making me wait out here for 30 minutes. I protested, my voice slightly indignant. Before I could say more, I let out a small gasp of surprise as Sasuke-kun suddenly took my hands and placed something in them. I felt a peculiar weight in my palms, which made me raise my eyebrows in confusion. Sasuke-kun remained silent, offering no immediate explanation for the mysterious object now in my grasp. Curious, I brought the item closer to my chest and felt a soft, silky texture beneath my fingers. It seemed to be a piece of fabric, though the solid, heavier part at its center suggested it was more than just cloth. "What is this?" I finally asked, giving up on guessing. Sasuke-kun let out a quiet chuckle, clearly amused by my bewilderment. "Here," he said, taking one of my hands and guiding it to the object. I flinched slightly as my fingertips touched something cold. I ran my fingers over the surface, realizing that it was made of metal. Slowly, I pieced together that the object was an oval-shaped metal plate, attached to a long silk strap. Sasuke-kun directed my hand again, this time to the center of the metal. "Try here," he said softly, his voice laced with excitement. Obeying his instruction, I carefully traced the metal plate with my fingers. I froze when my hand encountered a familiar indent, something I could never forget. My fingers followed the spiral pattern etched into the metal, and my heart raced with anticipation. I knew what this was. That symbol, the Leaf Village insignia. The very symbol I had dreamed of wearing proudly, as a ninja dedicated to protecting my village and one day becoming its Hokage. "Sasuke. What is this?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. Could this really mean? If he was giving this to me, did it signify that I had truly become a "Congratulations on officially becoming a ninja of the Hidden Leaf Village, Naru." I looked up in the direction I sensed him standing, using his chakra signature to confirm his presence. His energy felt calm, and I imagined him wearing one of those renowned Uchiha smirks I'd heard so much about. "So, I'm really a ninja now?" I asked cautiously, still in disbelief. It seemed impossible. How could I suddenly be a ninja when I hadn't even completed the academy syllabus or met the standard requirements? "I spoke with the third Hokage and Lady Tsunade," Sasuke began, his tone steady. "I explained what you accomplished yesterday and convinced them that there's still a path for you to become a shinobi. For now, you're an untrained Genin, but the Hokage has entrusted me to be your personal instructor." I'll be responsible for honing your skills and molding you into a true ninja. Before I could stop myself, I threw my arms around his neck, burying my face into his shoulder. I felt his muscles tense at first, but soon he relaxed and encircled me with his arms, pulling me closer. I'm a ninja? I cried, barely able to contain my joy. Thank you, Sasuke. Thank you. He chuckled softly, spinning me around in his embrace, and I clung to him even tighter. For a moment, we stayed like that, lost in the moment. When I finally pulled back, I looked up at him with a grin, my heart full of gratitude. What would my life have been like without him? The thought was too unsettling to dwell on, and I quickly pushed it away. Thank you, I whispered again, my voice filled with emotion. I love you so. I quickly clasped my hands over my mouth, startled by my sudden outburst. Oh no! I cried inwardly, fervently hoping that he hadn't caught my slip of the tongue. This was beyond embarrassing. Turn around, he said, his tone carrying a hint of amusement. I followed his instruction and turned. He took the headband from my hands and carefully tied it around my forehead. I felt my bangs fall over the headband, lightly brushing against my brow. When he finished tying it, I turned back to him with a beaming smile, offering the widest grin I could manage. It suits you, he said warmly. I couldn't help but giggle before giving him a hug. Narrator's perspective. The pair made their way down to the village entrance, where they were to meet their team and the client. The mission was straightforward: escort a princess to the Rain Village and ensure her safety before returning. Though Sasuke was confident that the mission would be relatively simple, he couldn't shake a lingering sense of unease about Naru joining them. Naru had a natural affinity for the life of a ninja, and Sasuke could feel in his bones that she was destined to become incredibly powerful. Despite occasionally appearing somewhat absent-minded, Naru was undeniably intelligent. Sasuke walked with Naru holding tightly to his right arm, while he casually stuffed his hands into his pockets. He was assigned to this mission as a Jounin instead of in his usual Anbu capacity. By now, all of the rookie group had attained the rank of Jounin, though Sasuke, Neji, and Sai were the only ones to have also become Anbu. Sasuke and Neji had earned their Anbu status after defeating 2 elite Anbu in a mock battle, a feat that left no question as to their qualifications. For Sasuke, joining Anbu had been motivated by personal reasons. The role offered more freedom, and with that freedom came greater access to resources he could use to hunt for both his brother and the Akatsuki. The Akatsuki had appeared about a year ago. Shortly after their arrival, news began spreading about the disappearance of several Jinchuriki. As part of his Anbu duties, Sasuke had been tasked with gathering information on these incidents, but despite his efforts, he had uncovered very little. The most valuable piece of information he obtained was the Akatsuki's targets, the Jinchuriki. Sasuke glanced at Naru, who continued to walk beside him, humming cheerfully with a broad smile on her face. 7 Jinchuriki had already vanished. He knew they were capturing them in order, and Naru was the 9th. Sasuke's perspective. They will come for her soon. Hitotsu hai toyori inamori shukaku, futatsu faya mitaru matatabi. I was abruptly pulled from my thoughts by Naru's song. Her voice was beautiful, carrying a serene melody. Mitsu Mizunara Makozuru Isabu. Those lyrics. That song. She was singing it again. How is this possible? The 3rd Hokage had sealed all memories related to that incident. So, how could she possibly remember the song? Yatsu Yoka Atsu Eyes, Son Goku. Izuzu Itsu Demo Kakeashi, Kokuo. This is troubling. Very few people are aware of the sealing placed on Naru. If this is discovered, it could lead to serious consequences. Mutsu Muri Sezu Awatazo, Seiken. Nanatsu Nana Hoshi Sora Tobu, Chome. Her voice echoed in my mind, the lyrics embedding themselves so deeply that they caused a dull ache in my head. I despised that song. Not because I fully understood it, but because it had something to do with the Baijuu. And that terrified me. Yatsu Yapai Taji, Gyuki. Naru? I interrupted before she could finish. I had heard enough. She glanced up at me, humming softly in acknowledgement. I scrutinized her closely, searching her expressionless eyes, but all I saw was my reflection. "Where did you learn that song?" I asked. She tilted her head thoughtfully, her free hand resting under her chin. "I'm not sure. I just seem to know it," she admitted with a sheepish smile, scratching her head. I frowned, looking away. "I see." I couldn't quite suppress the frustration in my voice, and the sudden silence that followed made it clear she had noticed. We soon arrived at the village gates, my mood soured by the entire ordeal. I need to report this to the Hokage, but it will have to wait until after this mission. "Ah, Sasuke, Naru, nice of you two to join us," Kakashi said to us as we neared them. He was standing in his normal slouched pose with a book planted firmly in his hand. He walked over to us and ruffled Naru's hair, which made me sigh in annoyance. "U.S. I just did her hair," I shouted out angrily in my head. "If you had to do a girl's hair all the time, you would be agreeing with me. I now see why girls get so pissed every time you mess with their hair. It's so damn annoying when you have to fix it up." "That's a nice headband, Naru," Kakashi commented with a playful wink, though I found the gesture somewhat unnecessary, given that she couldn't see it. Naru's face lit up with joy. "Thank you, Kakani. You'd better watch out, there's a new ninja in town," she declared with enthusiasm. Kakashi chuckled. "Oh really? Well, if you can manage to take this book from me in a one-on-one match, I might just consider you a ninja," he teased lightly. Naru clenched her fists, her determination evident as she pointed to her headband. "You'd better watch yourself, Kakani. One day, I'll be Hokage, and you won't be able to escape whatever punishment I decide to give." Kakashi laughed again, ruffling her hair, which I found slightly irksome. "I'll hold you to that," he replied. "Hey everyone." We all turned toward the bridge, where a pink-haired girl was racing toward us. Within moments, she reached us, out of breath and kneeling to catch it. "Sorry I'm late, everyone. I had an emergency at the hospital," she panted. Kakashi nodded. "No worries, Tsunade-sama told me you'd be a bit late." Sakura smiled in relief before throwing her arms around Naru in an excited embrace. "Naru-chan, I heard the news. They finally gave you permission to join the ranks of the ninja." Naru beamed. "Yep. Sasuke-kun convinced the old man and Ba-chan to let me in." Both girls squealed in delight. As another hour passed, Naru and Sakura continued their lively conversation, which didn't particularly interest me. Kakashi-sensei leaned against the gate, engrossed in his book. I stood in silence, my mind elsewhere, still uneasy. I didn't want Naru to endure the pain of the ceiling again. "Karasu. Pete, please, no more. It hurts." I watched helplessly as Naru lay on the ground, tears streaming down her face. She was too weak to struggle, the agony of the sealing ritual leaving her nearly immobile. A large sealing circle was etched beneath her, and she wore a simple white dress that barely reached her knees. Ignoring everyone else in the room, I knelt beside her and took her trembling hand. "I'm sorry, Naru," I whispered. Her outstretched hand shook violently, like a leaf in the wind. "It's almost over. Just a little more, and you'll feel much better," I assured her softly. Before she could respond, the markings on the floor suddenly flared to life, and she screamed in pain. "Sasuke-kun." A light tap on my cheek jolted me from the memory. Naru and Sakura were standing in front of me, calling my name. I rubbed my head, feeling the weight of exhaustion. "What is it?" Naru leaned in closer, resting her hand on my face, then gently tracing upward until she found my forehead. "Are you sure you're okay, Sasuke-kun? This is the second time today you've drifted off." Though her eyes didn't meet mine directly, I could sense the worry etched on her features. I took her hand from my forehead, gave it a reassuring squeeze, and smiled at the faint blush that colored her cheeks. "I'm fine. Thanks, Naru. I think I'm just a bit tired." She nodded slightly, her hand initially stiff in mine but gradually relaxed. It was amusing, she didn't mind cuddling with me at night, yet holding her hand made her unsteady on her feet. I chuckled softly, finding Naru's reactions endearing. "Hey, everyone, the princess is arriving," Sakura called out. A young girl, possibly a year or two younger than me, soon appeared accompanied by two men. Though she was short, about Naru's height, her confident demeanor made her seem taller. Her petite frame was dressed in dark blue royal robes. She had striking white hair, with hints of blue at the tips, and a delicate, heart-shaped face. Despite her youthful appearance, her makeup, including dark eyeshadow highlighting her golden irises, added a mature touch. Her hair was styled elegantly, with loose bangs framing her face. The men beside her exuded contrasting energies. The one to her right was tall and had a slender build, dressed in formal attire that indicated his role in the royal family. His plain white suit with blue accents reflected his service to the crown. He had a stern expression, with narrow, almost fox-like eyes, and short gray hair that suggested his age. His confident stride conveyed authority, as if he commanded respect wherever he went. The man to the left was a bit taller and had a large build. He was dressed in their kingdom's ninja attire. He had crossed swords on his back and had a headband wrapped around his forehead to keep his messy wild red hair out of his face. There was a grin on his face that showed a bit of sadism maybe? Well, whatever it was, I didn't like the vibe I got from this guy. Also, the way his eyes narrowed at Naru made me want to wipe that stupid grin off his face completely. Kakashi-sensei approached the group, his tone calm yet authoritative. "I am Hatake Kakashi, leader of this mission. These are my team members, Sakura," he gestured to the pink-haired girl, who gave a polite nod, "Sasuke, and Naru." He motioned toward Sasuke and Naru. I offered no response, while Naru managed a timid smile. "Princess Yuki's point of view." I nodded, but my gaze lingered on the tall, dark-haired man. Handsome seemed an inadequate word for him, he was undeniably striking. My cheeks grew warm as he returned my stare, which only heightened my embarrassment. Trying to regain composure, I turned toward the silver-haired ninja. "I am Princess Yuki, of the Yuki household. You may address me as such." My voice carried a regal tone, leaving no room for debate. I stood with my head held high, aware that some might find it odd for my first and last name to be identical. I, however, had no interest in others' opinions. My beauty, frequently commented upon by many suitors, was undeniable. A princess should not shy away from confidence. I then gestured toward the two men beside me. "This is my advisor, Sato Fujimoto, and my personal guard, Taro Hashimoto." Sato gave a curt nod, while Taro grinned confidently. My focus shifted back to the raven-haired young man, Sasuke, the leader had called him. His appearance captivated me. While I had encountered countless suitors, all boasting fine looks and charms, none could compare to Sasuke. Despite his lack of royal lineage, he carried himself with an undeniable sense of pride, as if he would bow to no one. His physique, exuding strength and confidence, was nothing short of impressive. He was, in every sense, the ideal man. My ideal man. Narrator's point of view. The group set out on their journey, with the princess walking in the middle, flanked by Kakashi and Sakura at the front. Kakashi, as usual, kept his eyes on his book, while the princess's attendants followed closely behind. Naru and Sasuke walked together on the left, their arms linked. The princess cast frequent glances at Sasuke, her cheeks tinged with a light blush. However, the sight of Naru walking so closely with Sasuke sparked jealousy within her. Sato, noticing this, smirked slightly. Upon reaching a clearing, the team began setting up camp. Naru sat quietly on a log while the others gathered food, erected tents, and surveyed the area for potential threats. Sasuke, tasked with patrolling the perimeter, instructed Naru to wait for his return, promising he'd only be gone for an hour. Naru wanted to contribute but was limited in what she could do. Kakashi and Sakura reassured her gently, their sympathetic smiles emphasizing their understanding. "Leave it to us, They told her, "Sasuke will be back soon." Resigned, Naru remained seated, once again forced into inactivity. Though she couldn't see the princess, she could already sense the air of superiority in her voice, especially in the way she spoke. Each time the princess attempted to engage Sasuke in conversation, Naru shuddered at the tone. Her distaste for the princess grew with every interaction. Meanwhile, the princess's advisor, Sato, prepared to start a fire, while Taro had accompanied Sasuke on his patrol. Kakashi assisted Sakura with setting up the tents, quietly wishing Yamato were there to help with the more labor-intensive tasks. Naru noticed the princess sit down on the log beside her near the fire pit. No offer of assistance was given, only a command to get everything ready while I rest my feet. The princess had contributed nothing beyond walking and sitting, and although Naru was restricted to doing the same, it was not by choice. A pang of envy tugged at her, for the princess possessed the gift of sight, a gift Naru could only dream of. Yet, she watched as this precious ability was squandered, unused for exploration or purpose, a thought that caused Naru's teeth to clench in silent frustration. The princess sighed, observing with disdain as her advisor struggled to ignite the fire. Her gaze then shifted to the blonde seated next to her. Yuki's golden eyes narrowed in appraisal. Now that she had a closer look, she could appreciate the girl's beauty. Naru's sun-kissed hair, cut to shoulder length, fell with a slight wave, her spiky bangs framing her delicate face. Her large, striking blue eyes, though clouded, gleamed like the clear sky, and Yuki dismissed the mistiness as merely an unusual eye color. Yuki's scrutiny deepened as she noted the girl's long dark lashes and naturally glossy lips, slightly pouted in shape. Her attention then drifted to Naru's attire, a simple black tank top layered over what appeared to be a mesh undershirt. The oversized orange and black jacket hung loose, unzipped and covering her hands. Yuki's disdain grew, especially at the sight of the offensive color orange, which she had always found excessively warm and distasteful. Naru's shorts, also orange, stopped mid-thigh, further igniting Yuki's irritation. She found the girl's lack of modesty appalling. How could someone display such disregard for propriety, revealing so much skin without the slightest hint of shame? Naru's long, knee-high black boots lay unstrapped and discarded beside her, reflecting her current disinterest in formality. Since losing her sight, Naru had discovered that her other senses had sharpened considerably, enhanced further by the presence of the Kyuubi. She had even developed some fox-like traits due to the demon fox sealed within her. Her heightened empathy stood out as an extraordinary ability, enabling her to grasp a person's emotions before truly knowing them. Initially, people were unsettled by this skill, associating it with the Kyuubi's influence and urging her to stop reading them. They viewed it as an unsettling byproduct of the monster fox. Sasuke, however, regarded it as a valuable gift. He often told her that understanding a person's feelings without relying on sight or prior knowledge allowed her to support friends who might be too afraid to open up. This sensitivity provided her with insight that others lacked, making her a true asset. The thought of the princess came to Naru's mind. She assumed that a princess would naturally carry herself with confidence and strength. However, she had not anticipated such a spoiled, self-centered individual with two overly attentive pets. A chill ran down Naru's spine at the thought. She had already decided she didn't like them. Naru sighed, growing increasingly restless. Sasuke had been gone for over an hour, and the absence of Sato and Taro left her uneasy as well. Yuki, who had become visibly irritated with Naru's idleness, finally lost her patience. "Naru, is it?" she called out sharply. Naru's head snapped in the direction of the voice. "Why yes?" she replied, uncertain of what was to come. "Don't you think you should be working as well?" Yuki barked, startling Naru. The blonde winced, not expecting such hostility. Did the princess not realize her condition? Surely, her blindness was apparent even to the most oblivious. Naru stammered. What could she say? Apologizing for her inability to work simply because she was blind felt inadequate and almost embarrassing. And this princess was clearly intimidating. "Well?" Yuki demanded impatiently. Naru smiled nervously. "I'm sorry. I would help if I could, but I can't do much without assistance." Yuki narrowed her eyes in confusion. "Assistance? Are you telling me you're handicapped? I have no respect for those too incompetent to manage on their own." Naru's point of view. That remark pierced through me like a dagger. I knew I was handicapped, there was no avoiding or sugarcoating the reality of it. But when someone hurls it in your face so bluntly, it stings. I clenched my fists in frustration. How dare she? I fumed internally. Of course, I'd never say it out loud, but her cruelty made my blood boil. Well, I stuttered, trying to formulate a response. I bit my lip in frustration, feeling like an absolute fool. I had always been shy around others, especially since I could sense people's true emotions so easily. And this girl, with her unchecked anger, only heightened my discomfort. She huffed loudly. "Well, what?" she snapped again. I felt my patience wearing thin. Every fiber of my being wanted to scream at her, demand the respect I deserved. I was blind, yes, but I was still older than this brat. Had she never heard of respecting her elders? All I wanted was for Sasuke to return. I could sense the girl's irritation manifest as a low growl. To make matters worse, Sakura and Kakashi had departed to gather firewood, leaving me alone in the company of these unfamiliar faces. As I prepared to respond, Sato's voice interrupted. "Haim-sama? What is it, Sato?" she retorted sharply, her patience with me clearly waning. "Naru-san is unable to undertake any tasks due to her condition." The tone of his voice unsettled me, sending an involuntary shiver down my spine and amplifying my discomfort. "Condition? What condition? She appears perfectly fine to me." Her irritation flared again, causing me to flinch slightly. This was becoming increasingly awkward. I hoped Sasuke would return soon. Narrator's POV. The princess glared at her advisor before shifting her gaze to the blonde. "Yes, Haim-sama, the young lady here is. She's blind." The group turned to the newcomer, Taro, who approached them without Sasuke by his side. A sly grin played on his lips as his gaze remained fixed on the blonde. The princess regarded him intently. "Blind?" The redhead nodded. "Observe her eyes more closely," Taro instructed as he approached the blonde. He noticed her tense posture and felt a slight twitch at the corners of his lips. Kneeling before the blind girl, he marveled at her beauty. Taro gently grasped her chin. "Pardon me, Naru-chan, I hope you don't mind." At his touch, Naru instinctively tensed, wanting to recoil from him, yet something in his voice was irresistibly alluring, compelling her to comply. With great effort, she managed a stiff nod. A wide grin spread across Taro's face, reveling in the fact that the princess remained oblivious to his sinister expression. He turned Naru's face towards Yuki, relishing the feel of her delicate skin and the subtle tremors that coursed through her body at his touch. He gestured for the princess to approach, her anger still apparent. "Do you see, Haim-sama?" Taro inquired, his sly grin still in place. Yuki examined the girl's features closely, now noticing the vacant expression in her eyes and the faint scars that marred both of them. A sense of foolishness washed over her for not having recognized this earlier, intensifying her annoyance. Why on earth would they send a blind person on a ninja mission? "I see," she replied. Releasing his hold on Naru's chin, Taro remained close, desiring further contact. He reveled in the thrill of potentially hearing her scream, a dark delight blooming within him. Everyone possessed a shadowy side, his was sadism. "What's happening here?" The three turned to see a silver-haired man accompanied by a pink-haired girl approach, the latter carrying firewood while the former clutched an orange book. Taro merely shrugged, standing nonchalantly. This sudden movement prompted Naru to exhale a breath she hadn't realized she had been holding. What was that? She wondered, a bead of sweat trickling down her brow. This reaction did not escape Kakashi's notice, his eyes narrowed at the redhead with a palpable intensity. Upon hearing Kakashi's voice, Naru felt an overwhelming urge to spring up and seek refuge behind him, yet she remained frozen, ensnared in a trance-like state. Taro's voice commanded her attention, leaving her feeling as though defying him would ignite her from within. Nothing, nothing. Taro replied carelessly, placing his hands behind his head. He smirked. We were simply enlightening the princess about your blind charge. Sakura's expression hardened. She had also caught the unsettling way Taro gazed at Naru, igniting her protective instincts as an elder sister. Kakashi recognized the necessity of intervening. He had sensed the disturbance and returned to investigate, displeased with what he discovered. I understand, he stated, though his tone conveyed more than mere words. While I am not her guardian, I would appreciate it if you refrained from handling a Konoha ninja so casually. Her guardian is highly protective and would not take kindly to it. Kakashi's concern was evident. He observed Naru take a shaky breath, as if recovering from an unsettling experience. He resolved to keep a closer watch over Naru and these individuals, knowing that if they discerned her true identity, the situation could quickly deteriorate. Moreover, they were actively monitoring the Akatsuki, and Naru held a legendary status among nations as a blind Jinchuriki, the only one ever to sustain an injury that could not be healed, even with the Kyuubi's power. Speaking of her guardian, where is Sasuke? Kakashi inquired. Naru perked up at this. She recalled that he was supposed to be with Taro. Taro sighed. He mentioned he just wants to make one more round. Kakashi nodded in acknowledgement as Taro walked toward his tent and entered. Once he was gone, Sato approached Kakashi and Sakura, bowing respectfully. I sincerely apologize for Taro's behavior. He tends to lack the decorum expected in such circumstances. He then turned to Naru and offered another bow. Please forgive you, esteemed Miss Naru, he was unaware, and I ask for your understanding regarding Taro's abruptness. Still somewhat dazed, Naru snapped back to reality and waved her hands in a flustered manner. And no, it's perfectly fine. Sato expressed his gratitude before returning to his tent, stating he would prepare for dinner. Sakura stepped closer to Naru, picking up her shoes and taking her hand gently. Why don't we freshen up before dinner, Naru? Naru smiled appreciatively and nodded in agreement. Watching them quietly, Yuki clenched her teeth in frustration. Did these fools not realize she had enemies? How could they protect her while attending to this naive girl? Kakashi-san? The man turned his attention to the princess. What is the meaning of this? What do you mean, Yuki-sama? Is there something wrong with Konoha's system that they would send a blind person on a mission? Especially one that involves my safety? Kakashi had anticipated this confrontation and, to be candid, he felt ill-prepared to address it at that moment. The young princess irked him, especially with her incessant glares directed at Naru. Your concern is unwarranted. We are more than capable of safeguarding our charge, Your Majesty, he stated firmly. Both men turned to see Sasuke approaching, his hands clenched in evident frustration. Kakashi surmised that Sasuke had likely been concealed in the trees, contemplating various methods of dealing with Taro. The princess appeared to regain her composure with Sasuke's arrival, yet her anger was still palpable as she glared at the blonde. Kakashi's concern deepened. She fixed her gaze on Kakashi, declaring, "Very well, but I refuse to have that girl near me." With that, she winked at Sasuke, who remained unresponsive, betraying no hint of acknowledgement. She then strode towards her tent, presumably to prepare for the evening's dinner. Kakashi turned to Sasuke, meeting his intense gaze. An unspoken understanding passed between them, they both recognized the necessity of a private conversation later that night. Sasuke narrowed his eyes and crossed his arms over his chest. Where is Naru? Kakashi remained focused on his orange book, his attention absorbed by its contents while tucking a hand into his pocket. She is with Sakura. They are merely assisting Naru in freshening up. Sasuke nodded and began to head in that direction, pausing beside Kakashi before moving past him. In a low, menacing tone, Sasuke growled, "I won't hesitate. I will kill him." Kakashi kept his gaze fixed on the pages of his book, making no outward response to the threat. "I understand. I won't attempt to dissuade you." With that, Sasuke departed, his eyes obscured by his raven bangs. Kakashi glanced upward at the clear blue sky, a gentle breeze ruffling his gravity-defying hair. Something feels amiss, he thought. He sensed it in every fiber of his being. Whether it was his reliable intuition or an overactive mind, he feared that this mission was poised to take a disastrous turn. Later that evening, Sasuke escorted Naru to the tent she shared with Sakura. Despite Sasuke's protests about needing to share a tent with Naru, Sakura was adamant in her disagreement. Sasuke saw no issue with Naru. After all, they had lived together for several years, and he knew she required support during her nightmares. Naru often felt shy around others and would prefer familiar company. Kakashi chuckled, teasing the raven-haired boy about his desire to cuddle with Naru, prompting both of them to flush bright red. Taro burst into laughter, while Sato observed in silence. Yuki, however, was seething. In the same house? In the same bed? She thought indignantly. This blonde girl had already made him feel guilty over her disability and had intruded upon his personal space. Suddenly, Yuki rose, drawing everyone's attention except Naru, who only lifted her head slightly in response to the movement. "I will retire for the night," she declared, then turned to her advisor. "Is my chamber prepared?" The advisor stood. "Yes, milady. Your tent is arranged precisely as you prefer." The princess nodded, casting a glance at Sasuke before glaring at Naru and walking away without further comment. Naru sighed when the sound of Yuki's footsteps faded. Sasuke, observing her tension during the princess's presence, noted her relief as Yuki departed. He understood the reason for her unease. No one had treated Naru in such a manner for a long time, and having her concerns laid bare by a newcomer was undeniably unsettling. He murmured softly. I turned to Naru, who was visibly distressed, rubbing her eyes in frustration. It seemed her condition was flaring up again. Despite the passage of time, there were moments when Naru would succumb to tears, her eyes feeling as if they were ablaze. After a thorough examination by Tsunade, it was determined that she was experiencing nothing more than phantom pain, an affliction she would eventually learn to cope with. However, due to the trauma associated with it, the discomfort might linger indefinitely. Tsunade had prescribed a cream for the blonde, instructing her to apply it around her eyes and particularly on the scars. While it wouldn't eliminate the pain, it would help alleviate the itching and reduce her impulse to scratch at her eyes in desperation. Sasuke let out a weary sigh. Naru, don't rub them, it will only worsen the irritation. Naru bit her lip, continuing to rub her eyes as she murmured, I can't help it. Sasuke sighed again. Come on, let's get you to bed. Naru nodded, suddenly feeling exhausted, the irritation from her eyes becoming increasingly unbearable. Sasuke stood, gently taking her hand and guiding it away from her face. He frowned slightly, noticing how watery and slightly puffy her eyes were from the incessant rubbing. I'll join you later, okay, Naru-chan? Sakura called cheerfully as she returned to finish clearing the dinner plates. Naru smiled softly. Good night, everyone. Everyone responded except for Sato, who merely nodded, aware that she likely could not perceive the gesture. Sasuke gently guided Naru into the tent and settled her on her sleeping bag. He then approached her bags and retrieved a small toiletry bag, taking a seat beside Naru as he unzipped the black pouch, which featured an orange zipper. Inside were various medical supplies, predominantly bottles of creams and tablets. Sasuke extracted 2 bottles of tablets, one containing a single yellow pill and the other a transparent orange bottle containing 2 pills. He handed Naru a cup of water before offering her the yellow pill. This should alleviate the irritation, he stated. Naru nodded, accepting the pill and taking a swift sip of water. Sasuke then placed the other 2 tablets in her hand. This will help you sleep and manage the pain. Naru swallowed both pills simultaneously, following it with another gulp of water. Ugh! I always detest tablets, they taste so awful. She complained, exaggerating her disgust. Sasuke chuckled lightly. Well, they are necessary to help you feel better. The blonde crossed her arms and pouted. It's frustrating. Why is everything that tastes good, Like ramen, bad for you? Yet, these revolting pills that make me want to gag are supposedly beneficial? I just don't understand the logic. Sasuke smirked. Stop complaining so much, Naru, it's not appealing. Just be quiet, Sasuke. She retorted, fuming. Sasuke then retrieved a bottle of cream and positioned Naru's head on his lap, gently removing her headband and placing it beside her pillow. He turned back to the toiletry bag and took out a bottle of eye drops, setting the cream tub next to him before unscrewing the eye drops bottle. Sato observed as the princess retreated into her tent, gritting his teeth. Taro, I trust you will exercise caution from now on. He admonished quietly to the redhead. Taro chuckled. Relax, I was merely having some fun. Besides, that blonde is rather intriguing. He turned to Sato, his eyes gleaming with malice, a manic grin spreading across his face. Can't you feel it? Her chakra. She's different. Keep your eyes open, Naru, Sasuke instructed, moving her bangs aside. Naru had never been fond of eye drops, while they didn't hurt, the sensation was unpleasant. Sasuke gently retracted her eyelids, noting her slight tension and the way her eyelids twitched at the motion. He administered 3 drops into each eye. As soon as he finished, Naru instinctively reached to rub her eyes, but Sasuke was quicker, capturing her hands before she could. Naru whined in discomfort. Apologies, Naru. I know you dislike it, but it will benefit you, he reassured her. Naru whimpered, I understand. I'm sorry. Sasuke leaned forward, gently kissing her forehead while maintaining a tender grip on her hands. Naru relaxed slightly, responding to the subtle display of affection. Do you believe you are prepared for the cream? He inquired. Naru let out a soft sigh. Yes. Releasing her hands, Sasuke retrieved the eye drops and set them aside before opening the tub of cream. He dipped his fingers into the cool, moist substance, then rubbed it between his hands to warm it, ensuring he had enough to apply around Naru's eyes. Keep your eyes closed, he instructed gently. Naru nodded and settled further into her position. Sasuke placed his hands delicately over her eyelids and began to massage the cream around her eyes. Naru felt herself unwind completely, the sensation was soothing, and Sasuke's skilled touch was undeniable. Question mark. A blush crept across Naru's cheeks at the thought. Is something troubling you, Naru? Sasuke asked, noting the flush that colored her face. Naru shook her head vigorously. And no, it's nothing. Once they finished, Sasuke found himself sitting with Naru nestled against his lap, a serene smile gracing her features as she drifted off to sleep. He couldn't suppress the small smile that spread across his face. She must have been exhausted, having fallen asleep so quickly. Leaning forward once more, he pressed another kiss to her forehead. Gently, he shifted Naru off his lap and tucked her into her sleeping bag, where she immediately snuggled in for warmth. Shortly thereafter, Sakura approached, indicating she was also retiring for the night. Sasuke stepped out of the tent, reminding her to call for him if she encountered any issues. Meanwhile, Sato walked toward the rear of the campsite. Once he was certain he was out of earshot, a red-haired man emerged from the woods and approached him. Taro, I cautioned you to monitor your behavior. Sato exclaimed. The man named Taro merely grinned. Come now, old-timer, it's perfectly fine. They might be a bit suspicious, but we have the element of surprise in our favor. Sato sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. That is beside the point. We require the princess to deliver her to Orochimaru-sama. Not to mention, having the Uzumaki girl on this expedition is a significant advantage, no, a tremendous advantage. Taro's grin widened. So she truly is the one? Sato smirked. Naturally, the whisker-like scars on her face are quite telling. Taro chuckled darkly, what an unexpected turn of events. Not to mention, I hadn't anticipated she would be such a charming sight. I wonder if Orochimaru-sama would permit me to have some fun with her. Sato glanced up at the red-haired man, his expression shifting slightly. Be cautious, Taro. Don't act impulsively. I understand. I understand. Let's adhere to the plan, Taro replied cheerfully before departing, leaving Sato alone with a sinister smile. This opportunity was perfect. Orochimaru sought the princess because her family possessed an ancient scroll on sealing techniques, intending to use her as a bargaining chip. However, he hadn't expected the Uzumaki girl to accompany them. Orochimaru would undoubtedly be pleased with how fortuitously events unfolded. Meanwhile, Sasuke approached Kakashi, who was leaning against a tree near the campsite, affording him an excellent vantage point of the surroundings. Sasuke settled next to him. I don't trust them, the raven-haired youth stated with conviction. Kakashi nodded in agreement. Neither do I. There is certainly more at play here. Sasuke's gaze hardened, his eyes shifting to a deep crimson. I'm concerned for Naru. There's no way this is merely a coincidence. We'll need to be vigilant. Keep a close watch on Naru, do not leave her unmonitored for even a moment. I wouldn't dream of it, Sasuke replied firmly. Kakashi nodded. For now, let's continue observing them closely. Ah. Both men snapped their heads toward the tents. Naru. That's it for this segment. I appreciate your support, and I look forward to sharing more with you soon. Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Best regards. Anime Octopus.